I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
The Site C Dam in the Peace River area of British Columbia. A report, I guess, is going to be coming out on it. What do we expect?
Well, this is the end of the BCUC's 12-week odyssey into the excruciating minutia of the Site C Dam. They'll report out, and apparently they'll give kind of three cost estimates. One if the dam is canceled, one if the dam is put on pause, and one if the dam continues to be built. We're kind of looking at it with a lot of skepticism right now. I mean, 12 weeks is not a long enough period of time to dig into a $9 billion project. All they're doing is crunching numbers and handing them over to the provincial cabinet. The NDP say they're not going to decide until maybe the end of this year, which, for the 2,000 people, their families who rely on the Site C Dam construction project for income, must be a pretty scary, could be a pretty scary Christmas lump of coal if John Horgan decides to cancel this project.
Now, the whole world plans to have electric cars up and running and being the dominant vehicle out there in the not-too-distant future. Do those cars not need a power source? Well,
precisely, and Site C would power the equivalent of almost 500,000 homes. It's fantastic energy because you can actually store it and use it when you need it. It'll be perfect as kind of the backbone of a system that would include wind and solar and other items around the province. But it's, incredibly useful, this dam. One of the dumbest lines I think the anti-Site C people are floating out there is that we'll never need this power. That's just ridiculous. I mean, everything in the world is moving towards electrification. Think of your televisions, think of your computers, the networks. Everything needs electricity. Think of Vancouver trying to ban natural gas. Electricity would be the way to heat homes if you don't have natural gas. And then we haven't even talked about the electric car revolution that's on its way. These environmentalists, so-called environmentalists, are really just anti-everything people. They're just worried that some of this energy might get used to pump natural gas. That's why they're fighting it. Really has nothing to do with actual smart system energy systems.
Why, over the few recent years, have people all of a sudden turned against natural gas? I thought it was a pretty clean fuel and very affordable.
It is very clear and clean and affordable, but what these environmentalists don't like is they don't like the dirty word fracking. Now, fracking, of course, in Pennsylvania and places like that is very different from what we have here. We have the cleanest natural gas industry in the world. We should be promoting it as such. We should be pushing out more of this because, every drop of natural gas we send to Asia takes somebody off of coal, and that is a huge benefit for the environment. But, these folks are, look, bluntly, a lot of these groups are funded by American agencies that want American energy independence. And they're more interested in shutting down Canada's energy industry, not allowing it to flourish, leaving our energy in the ground so that the American interests are served. I find that really disgusting, and I'm dismayed that so many Canadians just quietly go along with it.
Well, also some of the film propaganda against the oil sands, it was funded by Middle East money who didn't want to see competition for their oil.
Yeah, exactly. So, we keep hearing, the market says that Canadian oil and gas isn't feasible. Well, that's nonsense. I mean, America is building LNG terminals, or building new refineries. We can have access to that market if only our environmentalists and these negative Nellies would just get out of the way.
Well, what kind of negative environmental impacts have we had from liquefied natural gas so far? Can you think of?
Well, exactly. There haven't been any. And, this is, like I said, this is the cleanest natural gas extraction industry in the world. We're leaders in this. We should be touting that. We should be promoting it. We should be trying to get as many people who are on coal today off of coal around the world and onto our natural gas, because it's cleaner, it's better for the environment. It's just stark hypocrisy by people like Andrew Weaver and some of these folks who fight this.
Do you think it's more a matter of philosophy versus facts?
I think it's just politics and money. I think a lot of these environmental groups rely on money from American donors. I think they rely on scaring Canadian donors into sending them money. And so they do these things that are contrary to Canada's, to the good economic future of Canada, and contrary to actually, creating major environmental change in the world. There's no way we can hit the Paris Climate Accord greenhouse gas emission levels without a number of projects like Site C providing clean electricity rather than using oil.
Do you find it ironic that we have the same people opposed to the Site C hydro dam and also against the oil pipeline?
Yeah, I think they should be embarrassed, frankly. Like, it just reeks of hypocrisy, right? Like, people need to power their homes. People need to heat their homes. People need to power their cars. People need to, if we're going to have a green economy that relies on all this clean tech, we have to actually have electricity and energy to do it. It's been frustrating for us at ICBA because, we can kind of look at the big picture and say, look, yes, we want solar. Yes, we want wind. They are not enough, and they're not reliable enough to power everything in British Columbia 24/7, and certainly not with the growth that's coming. We need Site C. We need other projects like that in order to kind of provide the backbone necessary.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the U.S. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the U.S. and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, Premier John Horgan addressed the BC Federation of Labor. What was your take on that speech?
Well, this should send a chill down the spine of every taxpayer in British Columbia. John Horgan came out and said that he wants to embrace the Vancouver Island Highway model for labor, for public projects going forward. That, of course, was the 1990s boondoggle that the NDP oversaw. That jacked up the cost of a highway. You'll recall we're just building the Mackenzie interchange now, 20 years later, because their project got so out of control cost-wise they couldn't afford to do it. Really a terrible idea. We've had 20-some years of labor peace in this province, and now we're going to essentially, try to go back and force government agencies, taxpayers, to pay more for construction. Let me just kind of lay out a couple facts here. 80% of the construction industry today is non- or progressive unions. So only 20% is that building trades unions that give the NDP all that money, and all the workers and all of the candidates. But, John Horgan is saying that 20% should be the only 20% that builds a public project. Well, simple economics tells you the more competition there is in a market, the better it is for the actual consumer, because, there's innovation that happens. You pay less because they're competing against each other. And instead, he wants to just, gift wrap the entire construction budget of the province of British Columbia, BC Hydro, and all its crown corps to 20% of the market. That will jack up the costs. It will slow down projects. You'll lose innovation, and frankly, it's taxpayers who will be on the bill.
Well, what about the non-bid Puerto Rican power restoration contract going to a couple of guys in Montana? Well, that didn't go to bids, and it didn't look like that was a very good deal for American taxpayers.
Yeah, there's lots of examples of problematic decision-making. One of the things that concerns us is Michael Lee, BC Liberal MLA, leadership candidate, the speech was given on Friday. On Monday, he's in the House doing estimates with the Minister of Transportation. So he asked the Minister of Transportation, Claire Trevena, what does best bid mean? Because the Premier says that he's going to go with the best bids, not the low bids. Well, what does best bids mean? And she didn't have an answer. And basically what she told him was, well, whatever the Premier decides is the best bid will be the best bid. Well, this is a sickening politicalization of the purchasing system in British Columbia. It's going to open up all sorts of cans of worms and problems because you have people who have no experience in managing large projects, making political decisions about how to manage things. Look, there's room for everywhere. All around British Columbia today, there are non-union workers working side by side with union workers on different projects, different sub-trades all over the place. They get along well. People have the choice. Businesses have the choice. Government has the choice of who to contract. The system works now. And seeing, John Horgan want to drag us back to the 1990s, which were far from great economically for BC, that's going to be of grave concern to business folks, but also to the taxpayer who will end up paying, probably 25-30% more just in union markups.
Well, wasn't there a lot of criticism of the former Liberal government in BC for perhaps letting contractors run loose?
Well, contracts can always be tougher. You want to make sure that when you're contracting, if you're in government, you want to make sure you're transferring risk to the private sector when you're contracting them, and there's a price that gets paid for that. But I get, if you think that having major contracts and how they're going to be stipulated running through the Premier's office is a good idea, I would challenge you on that because you want to have accountability, but at the same time, you want to have the professionals, the experts grading these bills, and frankly, you want the best value for the taxpayer. And just having that decided by the fact of whether you hold a union card or not doesn't make any sense.
Speaking of building, I haven't heard any talk about expanding SkyTrain into the Fraser Valley or completing the route out to UBC. Are those projects that your association would like to see? Yeah,
absolutely. We want to see more infrastructure spending. We want to see more investment in infrastructure. I don't think anyone's talking about the Fraser Valley. I think as far as it gets is probably Langley City. Even then, I'm not sure it's going to go even that far once it starts working its way through Surrey. Surrey's just so expansive, and it's so expensive to build this. The problem here is the same problem we've had forever, which is the mayors of the region refuse to pony up their fair share. They expect the taxpayers in Prince George and Vanderhoof and Valemont and in Victoria to pay for the bills, all the bills for the SkyTrain here. That's not how it works. We don't, in the Lower Mainland, we don't pay for 100% of their hospitals. They don't pay for 100% of our transit. There have been options floated. Now they're talking about mobility pricing, which will be another huge tax on Lower Mainland drivers, when really what needs to happen is a reprioritization of municipal hall spending. We could have had all these things built in the past 5 to 7 years if only these mayors had allocated a small percentage of their revenue growth every year to them. But they made the decision that they had other projects with higher priorities. They don't want to hand over municipal money, and we're still stuck in this funding gridlock.
Well, supposedly the Trudeau government had billions of dollars for this, but because of the foot dragging here, we may not get a penny of it.
Well, I think we'll eventually get it. But it's been delayed. Trudeau's delaying that money now. It's being held over for another year. And if you actually look at the budget, it sounded great in theory, but the federal budget, I think most of the spending was in year 6 or 7. No, that's not true. Most of the spending was in years 7 to 10 of the fiscal plan, which meant that we would, have to re-elect Trudeau not once but twice in order to make sure that money actually flowed. He talks a big game, but when you actually start to crunch the numbers and see the year-by-year infrastructure spending, it's a whole lot less than he lets on.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Lotus Ventures Inc. is a BC-based medical marijuana company poised to launch into the rapidly evolving cannabis sector. Lotus is in the final review stage of the Health Canada approvals to become a licensed producer, having arranged facility financing of up to $12 million, plus building permits for its prototype indoor production facility. Shares trade under the symbol J on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Visit our website at lotusventures.ca.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, what kind of an impact have had all the forest fires in the interior this year on people who plan to expand their businesses or getting a new business going?
Yeah, well, it's chased a lot of people out of the interior and elsewhere. I mean, you know, if your business or home has been burned down, or if you weren't able to make enough money, you may have gone elsewhere. What we're curious in the construction side is what will happen in the spring. You know, obviously winter is not a great time to build. You know, most of the projects that happen will happen in the spring. We're very curious, kind of that post-Christmas time when, you know, people start to contract and make their plans for spring and summer. You know, will there be a lot of rebuilding? You know, is it going to be more kind of do-it-yourself? Is it going to be a lot of contractors? How's that's going to go? Still early days, but we're definitely keeping an eye on it because, you know, we want to know what's going to happen. The other part of it is, you know, government, and the Liberals have been criticizing the NDP for this. Government has been kind of slow to get relief out there. You know, it takes a while for the insurance money to come through, so it'll be very interesting to see this spring, you know, exactly what the kind of rebound or bounce back that we have from the interior.
And something, too, that I've been harping on for a long time is one of the world's best forest fire fighting aircraft has been sitting on a lake, totally available. The Martin Mars. Critics say it's outdated. The Martin Mars has what they call a crystal cockpit. It's the only firefighting aircraft equipped to fly at night. And it just sat there. And all these people lost their homes. They lost their businesses. It can put out 4 acres of fire at a time. There's nothing in BC and very few other resources in the world that can do the same. Do you think it really needs to be out there?
Well, I actually disagree. I don't. You know, there's only one of them left. It's a very expensive, slow aircraft to run. You know, you're right. Like, it drops more water than any other airplane that you could find. But, you know, that said, you know, it's not terribly accurate in the water it drops. You know, that can create some safety issues. They're beautiful. You know, I've talked to aviation experts about this who love the Mars. They you know, they'd love to fly in it. You know, they think it's really cool. But, you know, it just, a lot of the spots where these issues are happening, the lakes are too small to really handle it. And, you know, it's one of those things that probably is gone obsolete in the last few years.
The Kinder Morgan protests over the weekend in the Greater Vancouver area. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we're kind of sickened by this at ICBA. So here's the story of what happened. Last week, everyone, not everyone, but a bunch of people on Twitter lit their hair on fire because Enbridge, kind of creditors representing Enbridge, came to the office of Stand Earth, which is one of these environmental charities mainly funded by Americans, came to there and demanded $15,000 in court-ordered payments to Enbridge. So essentially, Stand Earth had sued Enbridge over Energy East or something. They had lost. The court had ordered that they had to pay Enbridge's cost of $15,000. Once it kind of hit social media and people freaked out, Enbridge said, no, we've ordered our people to stand down. We're not going to collect this $15,000. The executive director of that organization stood in front of the TV cameras crying poor, we don't have $15,000. Of course, they have assets of a couple $1 million listed, but that was besides the point. We can't afford it. Well, that same woman was arrested on, you know, less than 3 days later on the waters of Burrard Inlet for protesting, you know, perfectly legal work on the new terminal at the terminus of the Kinder Morgan pipeline. And she got arrested while in a plastic canoe, you know, literally made from petroleum products, you know, petroleum that comes through the Kinder Morgan pipeline. The hypocrisy of this it's just mind-boggling, right? Like, you know, she claims poor, can't do it, you know, and that she's right back out there, you know, protesting the next very legally passed project. If she wants to take them to court, take them to court. But look, you know, if you lose, you gotta do what the court says. That's the risk you take. You gotta pay the bill. You know, if we had sued and lost and were ordered to pay, you know, money to Stand Earth or someone else, you can bet that they would not let us stand down on that. I just find I find it repugnant, to be honest.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association, their website, icba.ca. If you have any questions for the show, you can email us at info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.